The desert wind howled through the silent ruins, carrying grains of sand across stones older than history itself. In the heart of southern Turkey, beneath layers of earth untouched for thousands of years, a team of archaeologists had unearthed something they couldn't explain. Massive stone pillars, perfectly aligned with the stars, carved with symbols no one could read, yet strangely familiar. The lead researcher, Dr. Elias Crow, stood frozen, his flashlight trembling as he whispered into his recorder, This shouldn't exist. According to modern history, civilization began roughly 6,000 years ago, but this site, confirmed by multiple dating techniques, was at least 12,000 years old. That alone was enough to rewrite everything we thought we knew about humanity, but what lay beneath the ruins was even more terrifying. Weeks earlier, ground-penetrating radar had detected something buried deep below the pillars, a massive underground chamber sealed behind layers of stone and hardened clay. The deeper they dug, the stranger the findings became. Fragments of advanced metallurgy, strange alloys not known to exist in nature, and something resembling charred glass, as though the entire site had once been subjected to intense heat, unlike anything naturally occurring. As the team finally breached the chamber's entrance, the stale air of a forgotten world spilled out, carrying with it the faint smell of burnt cedar and clay. Inside, they discovered fragments of tablets, written in a language that predates Sumerian cuneiform, believed to be the oldest known script. But when a cryptographer at the site ran an AI scan of the engravings, a single translated line sent chills down everyone's spine. The Ark of Knowledge must remain hidden until the second rising of the waters. The words didn't make sense at first, but the team quickly realized what they were dealing with, not just ruins, but the remnants of a lost civilization that existed long before Noah's flood, and perhaps, long before recorded history itself. As the news spread quietly among a select circle of historians, another anomaly emerged thousands of kilometers away, deep beneath the deserts of Saudi Arabia. Satellite imagery revealed strange geometric patterns buried under shifting sands, perfectly symmetrical formations stretching for miles. At first, authorities dismissed them as natural formations, but leaked documents later revealed classified digs were underway, and what they found matched the same symbols discovered in Turkey. It was as if the same architects had left a trail across continents, marking something vast, something hidden, a network of knowledge deliberately buried before an unimaginable cataclysm wiped their world away. Meanwhile, in the Vatican's secret archives, an underground labyrinth said to house millions of forbidden manuscripts, whispers began circulating about a collection of texts known only as Codex Genesis. These were rumored to describe an advanced civilization existing thousands of years before recorded history, one that possessed technologies beyond our comprehension, energy manipulation, astronomical mapping, and possibly even genetic engineering. According to one fragment leaked by an anonymous source, the Codex described a great archive, an ark of knowledge, that was sealed away to protect humanity's most dangerous secrets. Strangely, the texts aligned perfectly with the tablets uncovered in Turkey, as if separate sources were confirming the same hidden truth. But there was one problem. Every attempt to publicly release information about these findings was swiftly shut down. Archaeologists were silenced, funding was mysteriously cut, and entire digs were classified overnight. Some whispered about corporate interests. Others blamed world governments. A few pointed directly at secret societies with access to ancient bloodlines and forbidden archives. Whatever the reason, it was clear, someone powerful did not want this knowledge revealed. Then came the most shocking discovery of all. While analyzing fragments from the Turkish site, scientists at a private lab in Switzerland detected isotopic signatures suggesting that the materials had been exposed to radiation levels equivalent to a nuclear detonation, but thousands of years ago. Cross-referencing with satellite data, they identified similar hotspots in Iraq, Egypt, and northern India, all coincidentally linked to myths of ancient wars between gods. This tied directly to multiple cultural texts, the Sumerian accounts of sky beings known as the Anunnaki, the Vedic descriptions of flying crafts called Vimanas, and the Bible's reference to the Great Flood sent to cleanse the earth. The implication was staggering. Before the flood, there might have existed a global network of advanced civilizations, and they may have destroyed themselves in a war using technology we still struggle to understand. Dr. Crow, now facing mounting pressure from private entities and shadowy government officials, knew he was sitting on something world-changing. Late one night, he he decrypted another section of the tablets. This time, the message was hauntingly clear. When the waters rise again, the hidden ark must awaken, for within it lies the memory of our makers. The mention of makers was chilling. Did this suggest humanity itself was engineered, created by beings far more advanced than us? And if so, did they leave behind a repository of their knowledge, a hidden ark, knowing we would one day rediscover it? If that's true, then why bury it, and why has every attempt to uncover it been suppressed? As Dr. Crow pieced the clues together, he realized the ancient flood stories across the Bible, Sumerian tablets, and other global myths were not random folklore, they were all describing the same cataclysm. Thousands of years ago, an unimaginable disaster struck the Earth, wiping out nearly all traces of an advanced global civilization. But before their extinction, they encrypted their wisdom, their technologies, and perhaps their true history into vaults buried deep beneath deserts and mountains. The Ark of Knowledge was not a metaphor. It was real. And if the warnings were correct, the knowledge inside could alter everything we believe about human origins, religion, and our future. What Dr. Crow didn't know was that others were already searching for it, private companies, rogue intelligence agencies, and underground organizations who believed the Ark held something far more dangerous than lost history. It wasn't just knowledge they sought. It was power. Dr. Elias Crow sat alone in his temporary field office, a dimly lit tent set up near the ruins in southern Turkey. Outside, the cold desert wind whistled softly, but inside, the air was tense and heavy. On his laptop screen glowed the decrypted fragments of the tablets they had unearthed just days ago. Every symbol, every curve, every line revealed something humanity was never meant to know. As his fingers traced the strange inscriptions, he whispered to himself, "This isn't just history, this is a warning." Somewhere deep inside, he knew their discovery had crossed a line, a point of no return. These tablets weren't simply documenting a pre-flood civilization. They were describing technologies that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago: energy manipulation, gravitational control, and something disturbingly close to genetic engineering. But even more unsettling were repeated references to the Ark, described not as a boat, not like Noah's Ark from biblical accounts, but as a massive underground repository of forbidden knowledge, built to survive the coming deluge. The text spoke of machines that drink the air, stones that float without weight, and lightning captured inside metal. Crow struggled to comprehend how a civilization that supposedly lived before recorded history could have mastered technologies we are only beginning to understand today. Later that evening, the entire dig site was thrown into chaos when two black SUVs appeared out of nowhere, kicking up clouds of sand as they sped toward the excavation. A group of men stepped out, dressed in black tactical gear, wearing no insignias. The leader approached Dr. Crow and introduced himself only as Agent Keller. Without explanation, they produced a sealed order from the Turkish government declaring the site officially classified under national security. The team was ordered to cease all work immediately. From this moment, Keller said flatly, "Everything you've seen, everything you've found, never happened." But Crow refused to comply. He had already copied fragments of the data onto a secure drive, hidden deep within his personal gear. He knew he was being watched, yet he couldn't stop. The truth was too important to bury. Thousands of miles away, in a restricted wing beneath the Vatican archives, Monsignor Lucien Armand paced nervously in front of an ancient oak table covered in dusty manuscripts. Before him lay an original copy of the Codex Genesis, a forbidden text never revealed to the public. Its brittle pages, written in a strange blend of early Aramaic and pre-Sumerian script, mirrored Crow's translations almost perfectly. For centuries, the Vatican had quietly tracked discoveries linked to pre-flood civilizations, but this was different. This was confirmation. According to the Codex, before the flood, an advanced global network of cities existed, connected not just by trade, but by something described as harmonic gateways, possibly some kind of energy grid spanning continents. The Codex also made a terrifying claim: this ancient civilization destroyed itself, unleashing fire from the heavens, so catastrophic that it forced nature itself to reset. The Great Flood wasn't just divine punishment, it was a desperate attempt to wipe clean a planet on the brink of annihilation. The more Crow read, the more he began to see patterns. Strange references in the tablets aligned with descriptions from other ancient texts across cultures: the Sumerian king list, the Book of Enoch, and even fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls all hinted at the same hidden truth: a time when sky beings descended to teach humanity forbidden knowledge. Crow wasn't ready to accept the idea of extraterrestrials, but the recurring descriptions were undeniable: beings taller than men, wielding luminous tools, able to manipulate matter and energy as though by magic. One decrypted line chilled him more than the rest: "Those who descended brought the seed of life and the fire of creation, and when we misused their gifts, they withdrew, leaving only the ark." Meanwhile, intelligence leaks hinted at something bigger unfolding. Satellite imagery analyzed by NASA had detected vast anomalies beneath the deserts of Iraq and Saudi Arabia, enormous subterranean chambers sealed under miles of sand, directly beneath ancient Sumerian ruins. Internally, NASA called the project Erebus, and had classified all findings at the highest level. But a whistleblower contacted Crow anonymously, sending him encrypted coordinates and a chilling warning: "They know where the Ark is. They just don't want you to find it first." Haunted by the implications, Crow reached out to one of the few people he trusted, Dr. Amar Ave, a leading expert in ancient linguistics and mythology. Together, they began cross-referencing the recovered tablets with obscure texts hidden in university archives. What they uncovered was staggering: multiple references to a pre-flood archive buried beneath the mountains near the Persian Gulf, known in ancient dialects as Zurl. Legends described it as a massive library sealed with locks of fire, a phrase that sounded poetic, but when analyzed closely, seemed to describe some form of high-energy defense mechanism, possibly far beyond anything we currently understand. While Crow and Vey worked quietly, powerful forces moved against them. Their emails were hacked, their calls monitored, and strange cars began appearing outside their apartments late at night. Crow even received a cryptic message carved into his hotel door: "Leave it buried." But the warnings only fueled his determination. If there truly existed an ark containing the remnants of an advanced pre-flood civilization, blueprints, technologies, astronomical records, perhaps even evidence about the origins of humanity, then hiding it from the world would be a crime against history itself. In their private meetings, they revealed something else: a suppressed paper written by a former CERN physicist, claiming that fragments from Göbekli Tepe and other pre-flood sites exhibited quantum anomalies when subjected to particle resonance tests. The structures themselves seemed to interact with electromagnetic fields in ways modern physics couldn't explain, almost as if they were built as receivers or transmitters of energy. If true, this suggested that the lost civilization had access to a planet-wide energy network, a technology Nikola Tesla himself theorized about centuries later. Could it be possible that Tesla's work, his claims of tapping into the Earth's natural energy, was actually rediscovering principles known thousands of years earlier? The connection was staggering, and Crow couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking the same path as others before him, only to be silenced before they could reveal the truth. As Part 2 closes, the tension builds. Crow realizes the Ark of Knowledge is real. Governments know about it. Secret archives confirm it. And now, two powerful groups are racing against each other, one to uncover its secrets, the other to bury them forever. But he doesn't yet understand the most dangerous part: the Ark wasn't just hidden to protect the knowledge from humanity. It was sealed to protect humanity from what the knowledge could unleash. The night was silent in southern Turkey, but Dr. Elias Crow couldn't sleep. The shadows inside his tent stretched unnaturally across the canvas as he replayed Agent Keller's cold warning in his head: "Leave it buried." Yet Crow knew he couldn't. The pieces were coming together too perfectly. Every new fragment from the ancient tablets, every cross-referenced symbol, every whispered Vatican document pointed to one staggering truth: there once existed a civilization before the Great Flood, far older and far more advanced than modern science dares to admit. And somewhere deep beneath the shifting sands and stone, their most precious legacy, the Ark of Knowledge, was waiting to be found. But the closer Crow came to unraveling the mystery, the more dangerous his world became. 3 nights later, Crow received an encrypted message on a burner phone he had kept hidden since the Turkish site was shut down. It contained nothing but coordinates: a location in the middle of the empty quarter, a vast and hostile desert in Saudi Arabia where satellite imagery had once captured what appeared to be massive geometric structures buried beneath the dunes. Alongside the coordinates was a single sentence: "This is where the first chamber sleeps." No name, no sender ID. Yet Crow knew immediately this came from someone on the inside, perhaps a disgruntled member of NASA's Erebus project or a whistleblower from the Saudi digs themselves. Crow contacted Dr. Amar Ave, and within 48 hours, the two boarded a discreet flight under assumed identities, heading toward the Gulf. As they approached the coordinates via off-road convoy, their guide, a local Bedouin named Rami, warned them in a hushed tone, "This place is cursed. No tribes come here anymore. The air whispers at night." But Crow had heard such stories before. Folklore often hid fragments of forgotten truths. When they finally arrived, the desert opened into a vast depression unlike anything Crow had ever seen. In the center, half buried beneath centuries of sand, was an enormous slab of black stone, perfectly smooth, stretching hundreds of feet across. Its edges were sharp, unnatural, almost metallic. "This isn't geological," they whispered, kneeling to examine strange markings etched into the surface. They were the same symbols they had decoded from the Turkish tablets, but here, they formed concentric spirals, as if mapping some kind of energy flow. Before they could take a single scan, the silence of the desert was broken by the roar of engines. A fleet of armored vehicles descended into the depression, their lights cutting through the night. Within seconds, armed men in unmarked uniforms surrounded them. The leader, a tall figure in desert camouflage, stepped forward and said calmly, "This is a restricted zone. You have 5 minutes to leave." But Crow noticed something: the soldiers weren't examining him or Vey. They were guarding the slab itself, keeping it secure at all costs. As they were escorted away, he caught a glimpse of heavy drilling equipment concealed beneath tarps. The realization hit hard: someone was already trying to breach the site. Back in their hotel in Riyadh, they pulled up classified documents from a secure channel shared by an anonymous Vatican contact. What they read confirmed their worst fears. The Ark of Knowledge wasn't a single artifact or library, it was an interconnected network of vaults spanning multiple continents, buried long before the flood. The Middle Eastern chamber they had just seen was referred to in the Codex Genesis as the first gate, while other vaults were rumored to exist beneath the mountains of Turkey, deep under the Sumerian ruins of Iraq, and possibly even within Antarctica's frozen subglacial lakes. Each vault supposedly contained fragments of a memory lattice, a crystalline storage system capable of holding unfathomable amounts of data. It became clear why the Vatican, NASA, and world governments were so desperate to control access. The Ark didn't just hold knowledge, it potentially contained the complete history of humanity before the cataclysm, including forbidden sciences, maps of ancient star systems, and even instructions for technologies that could reshape the modern world. But Crow also began to understand something far darker. Scattered references in both the Codex Genesis and the Turkish tablets hinted at a catastrophic event, the Great Betrayal, where humanity misused the knowledge granted by the Makers, triggering a chain of disasters that ended in annihilation. The Ark, sealed and buried, was never meant to be found lightly. Crow and Vey decided to follow another lead: a series of radioactive anomalies discovered near the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in modern-day Pakistan. Reports from the 1920s excavation had already puzzled scientists for decades. Thousands of skeletons found lying in the streets, hands intertwined, their bodies showing signs of extreme radiation exposure comparable to victims of Hiroshima. At the time, mainstream archaeologists dismissed it as natural causes. But new geophysical data suggested something far stranger: a sudden heat event so intense it fused stone into glass in several locations, pointing to an ancient explosion on a scale modern weapons only recently achieved. Local myths spoke of gods hurling fire from the sky, eerily similar to Vedic texts describing weapons called Brahmastra, capable of reducing entire cities to ash. If these legends were more than metaphor, it raised a terrifying question: did humanity once possess weapons capable of destroying itself thousands of years before recorded history? And if so, were these weapons catalogued within the Ark? While in Pakistan, Crow learned of a sealed chamber discovered beneath Mohenjo-Daro's ruins, its existence kept secret for decades by the government. The chamber walls were composed of an unknown alloy impervious to modern cutting tools, and strange electromagnetic readings emanated from within. One anonymous source claimed ground-penetrating radar detected something inside resembling stacked crystalline plates, disturbingly similar to descriptions in the Vatican Codex. But just as Crow began arranging access, his source went silent. Within days, the man vanished without a trace. Back in Europe, Vatican archivist Lucien Armand uncovered another chilling clue. Buried deep within a forbidden section of the Codex Genesis was a translated passage believed to have been copied from even older Sumerian tablets. The ark was sealed with the Song of Fire. Only when the three gates awaken shall the memory of the makers rise again. But beware, for those who open what is forbidden invite the second flood. Crow couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't symbolic. The texts repeatedly described three gates, which seemed to correspond to the Turkish, Saudi, and Mohenjo-Daro sites. If two had already been located, it meant a third, perhaps the largest, was still hidden somewhere. But worse still was the warning of a second flood. Could the ancients have known of cyclical disasters, comet impacts, pole shifts, or technological catastrophes, capable of resetting human civilization? Were we approaching another? Just as Crow prepared to return to Turkey, his encrypted network lit up with another anonymous message. It contained an image taken by a high-altitude reconnaissance drone over Antarctica. Beneath the melting ice shelves, vast symmetrical structures had been revealed, hexagonal patterns stretching for miles, impossible for nature to produce. A short note accompanied the image: they found the final gate. The Ark of Knowledge wasn't mythology anymore. It was real. Pieces of it were already being unearthed, quietly, secretly, under intense security. But Crow began to suspect something horrifying. What if the Ark wasn't hidden to preserve human knowledge, but to keep us away from something we were never meant to use again? The icy wind screamed across the endless white plains of Antarctica as a small black transport helicopter descended through blinding fog, its rotors slicing the silence of the frozen wilderness. Inside, Dr. Elias Crow tightened his harness, his breath fogging against the cold glass as he stared at the jagged mountains below. Somewhere beneath this alien landscape lay the third and final gate, the largest vault of the Ark of Knowledge, hidden for over 12,000 years beneath layers of ice and secrecy. But Crow knew they weren't the first to arrive. Satellite images leaked from NASA's Erebus project had already confirmed it. Someone had been digging here for months. The world's most powerful institutions, NASA, the Vatican, private military contractors, all converging on this forbidden place. And now, he was flying straight into the heart of it. As the helicopter touched down on a makeshift runway carved into the ice, Crow was met by a small group of researchers and security personnel wearing unmarked insignias. Among them was Dr. Amara Vey, bundled in heavy Arctic gear, her eyes hidden behind polarized goggles. "You won't believe this," she whispered as she led him toward a secured elevator shaft drilled directly into the ice. "They've uncovered structures down there, structures that shouldn't exist." The elevator descended for what felt like an eternity, more than 2,000 feet beneath the surface, until the shaft opened into a colossal underground chamber. Crow froze. Before him stretched an impossible sight: vast hexagonal columns rising from the frozen ground, perfectly symmetrical, shimmering faintly under artificial lights. The walls were lined with metallic panels engraved with the same symbols they had decoded from the Turkish and Saudi sites. But here, the scale was beyond anything they had seen. This wasn't just a vault, it was a city carved beneath the ice. Massive archways led into interconnected tunnels, their ceilings etched with constellations depicting star formations not visible from Earth today. In the center of the chamber stood a black monolithic structure, its surface polished like obsidian, towering nearly 50 feet high. Vey placed her hand gently on its surface, and the temperature beneath her glove spiked instantly. "It's active," she whispered. This thing is alive." Crow's mind reeled as he circled the monolith, noticing a faint pulsation beneath its surface, almost like a heartbeat. According to the Vatican's Codex Genesis, this was the memory lattice, the central core of the Ark, said to contain the entire knowledge of the pre-flood world, preserved within crystalline matrices more advanced than anything modern computing has achieved. The monolith wasn't just a storage device, it was an intelligent archive. And someone, long ago, had built it to awaken only when humanity was ready. But they weren't alone. Across the chamber, men in black tactical armor worked furiously around mobile command stations, marked only by NASA's Erebus insignia. Crow overheard fragments of their conversations, words like quantum interface, dimensional mapping, and harmonic activation. Whatever they were doing, they weren't just studying the Ark, they were trying to turn it on. Suddenly, alarms blared, echoing across the chamber as lights shifted from white to crimson. A deep vibration rumbled beneath the ice, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Vey clutched Crow's arm. What did they do? She shouted over the noise. One of the Erebus technicians yelled. They initiated resonance sequencing, it's responding. The monolith began to hum, low at first, then growing louder until the entire chamber vibrated with a strange harmonic frequency. Symbols along the walls lit up one by one, cascading in spirals of golden light. Then, without warning, a holographic projection burst into the air above the monolith, an enormous star map filled with unfamiliar constellations, planets, and pulsating markers. They gasped. Elias, these aren't Earth's skies. This is a galactic map. As the projection stabilized, it revealed something even more disturbing. Lines of energy stretching between Earth and 3 distant star systems, accompanied by encoded streams of data flashing too quickly to comprehend. Crow recorded everything on his secure device, but before he could analyze it further, the monolith emitted a sudden shockwave that knocked several scientists to the ground. The lights flickered violently, and just as quickly as it began, the activation sequence halted. Silence returned, broken only by the groans of collapsing ice above them. One of the senior Erebus officers barked into his comms, "Shut it down." Now, Crow realized with dawning horror that they had triggered something they didn't understand. Back at their temporary base, they began decrypting fragments from the data recorded during the activation. The results were mind-shattering. Embedded within the transmission was a repeating pattern of numbers, coordinates, pointing to 3 other planetary systems. And within those coordinates was an encrypted message in the same ancient pre-Sumerian script. "We preserved the memory of our makers within the Ark. Seek not the forbidden fire, for it ends worlds." Crow's hands trembled as he realized what this meant. The Ark wasn't just humanity's archive, it was a warning. The makers, whoever they were, had left this behind as both a gift and a caution. They had given early humanity knowledge, perhaps too much, and watched as we misused it, triggering a war so destructive it required a planetary reset. The Great Flood wasn't punishment, it was containment. And now, humanity was on the verge of making the same mistake. The deeper they dug into the decrypted data, the clearer it became. The Ark contained blueprints for technologies far beyond modern understanding: quantum energy systems, zero-point propulsion, biological manipulation. But among the encrypted files was something far darker: weapon schematics. Devices capable of channeling planetary-level energy, altering weather patterns, and destabilizing entire ecosystems. Crow understood now why the Vatican, NASA, and world governments wanted this knowledge hidden. If these secrets were unleashed without restraint, humanity could destroy itself, again. But another layer of the message chilled them to the core. The Codex Genesis, when combined with the Antarctic data, revealed a prediction, a cycle of cataclysm. Roughly every 12,000 years, the Earth faced catastrophic environmental upheavals triggered by cosmic events: magnetic pole shifts, solar flares, and gravitational disruptions caused by a wandering celestial body described in multiple texts as Nibiru. According to the projections, the next event wasn't thousands of years away, it had already begun. Meanwhile, forces outside their control tightened. Vatican emissaries arrived at the Antarctic site within days, escorted by private security forces. NASA shut down external communications, sealing the excavation under the highest classification level. Crow and Vey were placed under protective supervision, a polite term for house arrest. But Vey managed to smuggle out one final decrypted fragment before their systems were seized. It read, "When the waters rise again, awaken the Ark. Within lies the seed of remembrance. If we fail, the cycle resets, and all will be forgotten." Crow stared at the message, his mind racing. The Ark wasn't just a library. It was a failsafe, a safeguard left by a vanished civilization to ensure that if humanity fell, we would rise again. But activating it carried unimaginable risks. As the Antarctic ice groaned and cracked under growing instability, he realized the countdown had already begun. The world believed the Ark was just a myth. But deep beneath the ice, a machine older than history had awakened, and whatever it was designed to unleash, there was no turning back now.